Yo, 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 welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I'm your boy Tactix.
Yo, it's just Darcy here.
And apparently just you and me.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was like, it's like the cadence is off without the third. In
I
honor,
know.
in honor of Umar not being here today, I brought out my geek shirt. So yeah, yeah,
Wicked, wicked, wicked. We miss you, bro. It's not gonna be the same
absolutely,
without you, but we'll try to hold down the fort while you're gone.
absolutely, absolutely. So,
Okay,
so who
so
who takes the agenda?
I guess I will, man. I'll I'll do the honors for now. So the first thing that we're going to open up with in regards to geeky news is the Venom 2 trailer just recently dropped a couple of days ago. Quite a bit more in there in comparison to the first trailer that we got. We get a better look at Carnage, played by Woody Harrelson, and we actually also get reference to how he becomes Carnage, which is a little bit of a depiction from how it was presented in at least the animated series of Spider-Man, like the 90s version. I don't know how they
Hmm.
did it in the comics, but I remember in the animated version, uh, both Eddie Brock and Cletus Cassidy were inmates, and then the Venom symbiote kind of made its way, a bit of it, the offspring made its way onto Cletus Cassidy, and that's how he became Carnage. So,
Mm.
yeah, but yeah, the trailer just dropped. So, Darcy, what's your opinion on the second trailer?
I mean, off of the strength of the first film, I'm expecting this movie to be weak. like, uh, like, like the trailer dropped and it added, yes, like you said, more stuff to it. Additionally, I like what I'm seeing from Woody Harrelson, and I don't like what I'm seeing from Woody Harrelson. Like, do I think he's doing a good job of convincing me that he's like this crazy guy? Yes, but I'm worried that his performance won't be supported well. And then it'll come off like not as genuine as it should because of the world that is around him. Like, I don't know. Like, you'll feel like he's overacting because everything else is subpar around him. So, like, when I see there, I'm like, oh, he seems interesting, but I think it's going to be trash. I think the whole movie as a whole is not going to hold up, and it's just going to be like a CG slog fest when it is, and it's I don't know. I just think it's gonna. I think the movie's gonna suck. Okay, I'm estimating like 5 out of 10 at best.
That's fair. What did you give the original, the first one?
Like
Like
I don't even
from what you
remember.
remember? Yeah.
Right now, honestly, I'd have to give that movie like a 4. My favorite character in the whole movie is his ex's boyfriend. Like, take the main character, go to the ex-girlfriend, and take the new boyfriend. Like so removed from main cast.
And that dude got like 5 minutes of screen time.
Is because he was the most believable. If he made a joke, I believed it. Everything action he
Fair.
did made sense. Other people's actions didn't make sense. And funny enough, I'm going to like slide in something else, but I was watching a video on Suicide Squad, like the one we had previous, not the new one, and how all things were wrong. And they're talking about how the editing was so bad that things were out of order that they just didn't make any sense. Like you just
Yeah.
couldn't understand stuff. And I'm thinking back, I feel like there was some stuff in the Venom movie that was edited weird that like maybe the decision they're making would have made sense if they left something else in or if they adjusted the order. But because they put like certain beats in certain places, I'm like, it's maybe like some decisions people make like made no sense to me. Like people wouldn't make those decisions in this context. It's like you just go, what is the standard, most typical Hollywood decision ever? And then just put that in here regardless of context. So
Right, right,
I
right.
don't know. What are your thoughts, bro?
Okay, so I didn't dislike Venom as much as you did, but I do agree with you in the sense that the editing of the movie felt very choppy. Like it felt like there's a lot of elements missing there, and they didn't really get the grasp of the source material Obviously because Spider-Man's not even in this, right? So
They didn't get the grass grow. They weren't in the ballpark.
no, no. So I feel like Sony was desperately trying to make their own kind of Spider-Verse because Spider-Man, although they still own the rights to Spider-Man, he's technically in-house with Disney at the moment, right? So I feel like that was kind of like they were trying to kind of establish their own type of Spider-Man-esque character and bank off of that. So understand that, but did it work? Not quite. In terms of this trailer, I like Woody Harrelson. I feel like he when he's in a role, he pretty much dominates in everything and a lot of the stuff that he's in. I I believe his portrayal of Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. I like the way Carnage looks. Do I think this movie is gonna do well? Not really. I feel like they're going to do enough to warrant maybe a third movie, but I don't think anyone's really like, to me, this trailer is kind of like, I like it for what it is. It's like when an ex comes back into your life and, she's not great in bed, but like, you're hitting a dry spell and you're like, that's all you got. So you're like, okay, why not? You know what I mean?
Bro, you're like when an ex comes back in your life, and I look up and I see that picture, and I'm like, man, you must be in a Sahara drought right now.
Bro.
If that is what your ex looks like,
It is what it is.
you're like,
But yeah.
I don't know them teeth, but maybe I'll take another shot at it.
Yeah,
I was mad when Venom was doing well because like I was like, this movie's trash. I don't want to see another one. And then it was like the numbers doing well. I'm like, I get it because one, Venom actually looks legit. Like the actual CG of Venom looks legit, and there was something intriguing about it because it's in the superhero world and it looks so different. Oh well, maybe I want to check that out. And then it just had this like I feel like it had this pull that was like I gotta check it out. And I wonder if you were able to poll like 80% of the people who saw this movie, did they watch it and love it? Did they watch it and hate it, or did they watch it and they were like it was like Fast and the Furious, like for them, like not the recent one, but ones before, where there was just like you're just like I just want to shut off my brain, right? Because like I would bet there's a ton of people who are just like don't remember it, don't care, but they had to check it out. And that got them enough numbers to justify another film. But I wonder if this movie will come out and nobody will go watch it because like I just didn't care, and I don't need to check it out anymore. Like there's no draw anymore because it's like I already seen that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I feel like because of what we got in the first Venom, is this going to run the risk of just being a rehash? Because like in the first Venom, you're dealing with another derivative character, right? Like other symbiotes that are facing off against Venom. In this one, it's the exact same thing. It's just a much more well-known character, that being Carnage, right? So is it going to be the exact same kind of movie that we get, or are they going to somehow up the ante in some way? Like I personally feel like Venom should have been rated R because at least it would have had that edge. It wouldn't have done anything for the story because the storyline was still trash, but it would have been nice to actually see a little bit of gore in the movie. Like Venom you actually see Venom biting some dude's head off and shit, right? And I think with a character like Carnage, I feel like the most edgy thing that we saw, especially in the trailer for right now, is when he takes his tongue and he sticks it down the security guard's mouth, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of soft core stuff that does a similar thing.
Yeah, very true, very very true. But yeah, I think they need to. I would like it if they could take it to that next level and give us like a Deadpool type of, like basically do it rated R, right? Go all the way with it rather than trying to maintain a PG-13, just so you can cater more to a younger audience. But I don't think they're gonna go there, and that's unfortunate. But again, like I said, rated R doesn't necessarily make the movie good. I mean, look at Mortal Kombat. That was rated R, and that movie fucking sucked. So yeah.
Yeah. You know, I wonder with the first film and now it's stuck into the second film and I hope that they phase it out. But I
Hmm.
wonder if the first film, because we're talking about choppy editing, if it
Yeah.
was that because the thing that was intriguing about this is, and the reason I would say Tom Hardy is a good cast if you tell a story this way,
Hmm.
is the conflictedness, right? The dichotomy of trying to be a good person and having literally an evil, like I can't think of the word, but like evil thing that's with you, right?
Hmm.
And the balance of those two things. He's a guy who can perform that, and I wonder if they were like they cut the film and they're like, oh, this is too dark, this is too whatever, and then they decided, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna lighten this up, and then they brought in the female love interest and they lightened some stuff up because none of that made felt any connected to the film. And I feel like that film would have done better with two things. One, the one you said, make it rated R, and two, just focus on him as a character and spend way more time on Tom Hardy just
Hmm.
going through the motions of battling this thing and trying to come to a conclusion, like putting a strong moral dilemma. How to put this, this is going to sound like a weak way of saying this, but like, you know, Bruce Wayne sees his parents killed, and then he makes a decision from there, right? Like
Hmm.
instantaneous, like type of decision or near instantaneous, right? And you have this one, you could draw out the decision, right? Like what
Hmm.
answer do you come to with
Hmm.
their battle? And I feel like that would have made it a stronger film because that love thing did nothing for me, like
Yeah.
absolutely nothing for me.
Hmm.
And I just feel like yeah, I would have done better with him battling and trying to find his place in the world with this thing, setting
Hmm.
it up for another film like a Carnage. But like, where are they gonna go with the third film? Like, we're gonna get like a blue one, you know, we're gonna get a purple one, like like
I think at this point, if they do a third one, they have to somehow try to shoehorn Spider-Man into this, like somehow, because otherwise it's just gonna get stale. Because like I said, like well, pretty much the joke that you just alluded to, right? Is like, are they gonna just do a blue one now? Like, are they just gonna keep adding in more of these derivative characters? Like, it after a while, it kind of is like, okay, we've seen the same trope over and over again. Like, give us something new, fresh. Like, what other villains can we face off? Can Venom face off against? And I think to another point, my original problem I had with the first Venom, anyway, and this is probably a personal gripe because I didn't actually read the Venom comics or the Spider-Man comics, so I wasn't familiar with him as a character outside of the animated show. And in the animated show, he's very menacing. And in this one, he comes off more comical. Like he's very corny and jokey and like I don't know, it was off-putting for me because that's not the Venom that I grew up on. And I mean, apparently that it was an accurate depiction of who he is in the comics. Like Venom was always kind of like a corny type of character, which I still find weird because the way they portrayed him in the animated series, he was like a formidable foe against Spider-Man. Like,
yeah,
so I don't know.
yeah. He's Venom is iconic like Joker, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe not quite the same level, but you know, Batman is a dominating figure, and Joker is this malleable, mad, like tactician, right? That he
Hmm.
has to face off against, who does things that you're completely illogical, and then you have Spider-Man who's strong but small and approachable and funny, and Venom is his opposite, right? He is an
Yeah.
unbelievably domineering figure of horror against a character who's laughing, who makes you laugh, right? And
Yeah.
so that shift really is supposed to scare you. Having just having him balance out against versions of himself is just boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Agreed.
yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we're moving on from that one. So the next topic of the discussion is that apparently they are coming out with a new Pokemon live action. I said movie here, but it's actually a TV series on Netflix, which is really interesting. So I guess they're pretty much throwing away the Pokemon. What was the Pokemon Pikachu? What was the new one?
Pikachu detective.
Detective Pikachu. Yeah, that one. So I
Detective
guess they're
Pikachu, yeah.
not. I guess they're not continuing with that, and they're just gonna double down and do more Netflix original shows, which I find to be very interesting.
I was
But what are your
reading on it
thoughts on?
though. I was
Yeah.
reading on it though, and sorry, I'm not even jump on it, but on that point that
Hmm.
you're saying, it's supposed to be in the vein of Detective Pikachu, like in that style. So not
Hmm.
containing the series, but taking from the success of that.
Right.
Which, hearing that, like, what are your thoughts initially? Did you watch the Detective Pikachu?
I actually didn't see it. For me personally, like, so I grew up on Pokemon. Like, I was kind of into it for a while. Like, I played the card games when I was a kid. I had a Game Boy Color, so I was like, I had Pokemon Red, I had Pokemon Gold. So Pokemon was definitely my shit back in the day. But I got to a certain point where I kind of outgrew it and never really got into, like, because I know they're still continuing like the cartoon series. Apparently, like, they're still, and there's like more than 150 now, so more than 150 Pokemon. So I personally didn't end up watching Detective Pikachu. I heard it was good, but yeah, I just haven't brought myself to watch it. So yeah, it's not really for me. I don't know if I'll even be interested in this series, but it's great that they're actually doing it. I think that could be a fun property for the kids.
I would say one, if you're bored at some point and you're just looking for something, put it on your list. It was actually a good film.
Yeah. Okay.
It was. I want to say if you had fun with the Sonic movie, you'll be at about the same level.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe
Sonic was cool.
yeah, maybe slightly better writing than Sonic.
Sonic. Okay.
In terms of having a little more heart in the movie. But yeah, it's cool because it sets up like a couple of things it has over, say, the Sonic movie. I'm just comparing because it's probably the closest, most similar kind of like completely animated, unrealistic creature in a realistic world. Um, and the thing that this has is that it's has a more of a world that's already built where Pokemon are kind of everywhere, right? And so that's very intriguing, and they get all these interesting visuals to explore. It has a twist that you can kind of see coming, but even when they give you the twist, they land the emotional punches the right way, and you're like, okay, okay, okay. You know what?
Yeah.
The actors are great. Ryan Reynolds, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds. So I'm like, there's
Yeah.
so many of these like famous dudes that I'm like, their names are kind of similar or alliterations. I'm like, is that the right one? Ryan Reynolds does a great job, and the main actor, I don't know his name, but he was in one of my favorite Netflix series about like rap music. And he also like did a fantastic job in his role as well. And so yeah, I gotta say I'm not like, oh my God, I gotta see this. But I bet you the second this comes out, I'm like, yep, let me click that.
Check it
Unless I
out.
see
Yeah.
that if it's like the same animation and the same heart and they just have different actors, unless those actors drop the ball, I think it'll land. Especially if they're just expanding that existing universe. Like if they just take the universe from that movie and go, cool, but let's just go over here and tell these other stories not related to the movie, but in the same world, then I think it'll be fantastic. If it's completely different world, different animation, it's gonna be hard to sell.
So it might pull me in if they cater to my childhood and they bring in the original characters like Ash, Mitzi, Brock,
Mm.
like all of them. Then it might get my attention because there's a level of nostalgia there that might be intriguing for me to kind of check out in like a live action setting. So yeah, if it's like a completely like retelling of something else or a different story, I don't know. I don't know if I'll give it a go, but we'll see. We will
Yeah,
see.
that's interesting. I also kind of feel like there's a room for this again. I want the universe they showed in that movie, but you could take Ash, or you could take a couple other characters that are basically Ash, but they're just different, right?
Yeah.
Um, because the one problem is you go retell, then are you just doing the same episodes as the animated? You're just retelling the exact same thing, or will it get too much comparison and too much pull? People will be like, no, you're not doing it right. Versus if you take a couple other characters that are similar, you have more ability to kind of change things up and make sure it sticks in the universe. Because sometimes you take animated characters and you like their expressions are wrong in real life. And it's like it's pretty hard to do those expressions in real life. So
Yeah. Well, okay. So if not Ash, then I think the next best thing that would help draw me in is if Ash was in the show, but to a lesser extent. Like, let's say, for example, he took on the role of the professor. The professor that actually gave him his Pokedex and then sent him out on the journey
yeah,
to being a Pokemon
bro,
master.
we all play that to Nintendo game, bro. That's how I remember
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So if they introduce Ash that way, where he's not a pivotal part of the story, but he shows up periodically throughout the series, that might draw my attention then there, because then they can basically say that this is like continuation from the animated show, but we're now doing like we're kind of going in a different direction and building
Mm.
on an entirely new story. So that way you still have the opportunity to introduce like the older characters like Misty and Brock and all of them.
You know, that's playing on something that I've been really loving and experiencing with Baruto, which I know you're not complete on Naruto, but Baruto. So they have like Naruto Shippuden, and then Baruto, and I'm hoping my accents on those pronunciations are correct. But the thing I love about the show is like it had some rough moments in the start. Like every Naruto world, there's always like filler, but the thing I've loved is that it's like 150 episodes in at this point, right? And you're seeing his children grow up, and in the beginning, Baruto was like just a cocky little crap, and he would interact with his dad in certain ways, and you literally, because you grew up watching Naruto, you've seen his journey from like 12 to like the end of the show where he's basically like 18-ish kind of range, and then the time jumping is like basically like late 20s. You come into Baruto and now he's like in his 30s, right? And you're like, when a kid acts a certain way, you're like, you don't even know what this man's been through. Don't talk to your dad like that. Like that's how you
Yeah,
feel, so
yeah.
passionate, because you have hundreds of episodes. You have literally like Naruto, for anyone who's completed it, you really feel a lot of things after you've seen the whole journey emotionally. Like it starts to feel almost real to you. And so when you see the kid act a certain way, and then later on he ends up getting into actually seeing the memories of his father through something that his father, a power that his father develops over the Shippuden series. And when he sees what his dad went through and he feels the emotions, he's like it shifts his whole personality, because to a degree, like it's a little pivotal thing. And so I feel like I said all that to say like the whole passing of the torch thing, where you have Ash still there, but he's a character kind of like Naruto in the Baruto world, right? Where he's
Yeah.
still pivotal, but it's not his show. It allows for people who have that like longevity to feel something a little different and give something out. And then new kids coming into this, the same way new kids might come into Baruto, would have that like connection with older people, where they would have to
Yeah.
like, no, you don't even know. You don't even know the history, man.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
gotta explain it to the kids.
yeah. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. And I don't know. Nah, that wouldn't work. I was gonna say if they were to do flashbacks and they were able to get the rights, they could use like bits from the actual animated show as an illustration of the flashback. If like sort of, for example, if Ash is in like a scenario, if Ash is talking to the main character of the show and he's making a reference to your point in terms of like how like there's like gonna be like a memory relapse or something like that, or a flashback, then they could use snippets from the actual animated show. But I don't know how that would look in like a live action setting, if that would come off a little too corny or whatever.
I feel like it depends. One, if the show is like really quirky and has really fun thing going on, like if it's not
Yeah.
super realistic, but if it goes off of the tone of the movie, that wouldn't
Yeah.
work. The only way I
Yeah.
think you could do that, and this is where you have to be sarcastic about it, is that it's kind of like Logan, where they have the X-Men comic and he's the X-Men, and it's like a
Oh yeah,
retelling, right, of their
yeah,
story, where it's like you
yeah,
have an animated like retelling of his past, and it's like, well, it's not, it wasn't exactly like this, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like he shows him part of an episode, so it's like
Mhm.
a meta thing in the world.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the real Ash is kind of like it was mostly like that,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then like as you're saying it, like one of those characters get like shot in the sky and like land over there. It's like yeah, it wasn't exactly like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure.
Those characters that should have died like 19,000 times inside the show, the villains.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
like Team Rocket or whatever.
yeah, like every time
Yeah,
they get
yeah,
exploded, and you're like, not realistic at
yeah,
all.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Let's switch gears here and go to the next topic. So the next topic is that Jordan Peele is apparently coming out with a new movie called Nope. And there's not much to go on in terms of what it's about, but it's going to be starring Daniel Kaluuya. I hope I said his name right. Kiki Palmer
Okay, keep
and
going.
Stephen Yen, or not sure if that's he's the guy from is that the Walking Dead dude?
Sorry, say the last one again. Oh yeah, Stephen Ewan.
Ewan, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it's going to be starring those three, and apparently it's going to be taking place in a retail store following a guy who works in the electronics department, but that's as much as we have to go on based off of the movie. But obviously, Jordan Peele has been delivering strong with his last two movies, Get Out and Us, both really good, solid, unique films, and I'm sure he's going to deliver on this one as well. And I'm excited to see what this is all about. And oh, he's also isn't he directing or producing the new Candyman movie as well?
Yeah, yeah. He's like
Yeah,
a producer now. I don't think he's like a director. I think he's just at the
got you.
top level.
Okay, yeah. Well, I
Okay.
mean, he's been two for two so far. So and then plus all the stuff he's done with Key and Peele as well, right? So,
Oh my
but
God, Kim. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So, what's your opinion? Are you excited for this? Even though we don't have much to go on other than a movie poster.
I am excited, and I am also potentially sad at the same time. So let me jump into that.
Hmm.
So I've had a big theory of Get Out
Hmm.
and what was the last movie? I just forget the name right now.
Us, us.
Us. Yeah, I have a theory about it. But the fact that Daniel Kaluuya is cast in this film, it either one of two things is going to happen. Either he's playing the same character from Get Out
Hmm.
in a different scenario, and my theory holds true, or he's playing a completely different character, and then I gotta go into a different theory that I'm not as big of a fan of, or like my secondary theory slash whatever is like just it doesn't exist anymore. So one, yes, I agree. I am all in on whatever this man puts out. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm all in, even to the point of the Candyman. The first trailer looked like I'm like, you just gave away the whole movie. Why are you gonna give me the whole movie? And then the second trailer came out with less information and made me go,
Yeah,
this movie actually looks kind of good. And I'm like,
yeah.
why'd you do it in the reverse? But even though it's not his baby, but I'm all in. But I'm hoping that Daniel is playing the same character and that my theory is true. Because I am, if my theory is true, I am super excited.
Because then it means that he's trying to build a universe within this horror genre that he's creating.
Yeah, my general theory, and I had more details in the past. It's been a while, so I've kind of forgot my theories. But I have this like general thought, which was that like the there are multiple different experimentations, and because these films tend to always revolve around like experimentations or things that happen to African Americans, then it's going to flip into what happened after Us, where you saw them lining up again, like all the replica or like cloned
Yeah.
versions of people, they're like lining up. That there's going to be like a revolution, but it's a revolution coming from people that have been manipulated, and it's
Hmm.
going to be like a takeover of the United States in like a horror type way, kind of like a uncontrolled purge or something. But like I kind of hope that it's like the same character and he's in a completely different scenario and he's like, oh my god, again, like or something is like happening to him again. But if it's not something like that, then I feel like he's kind of making a Twilight Zone kind of universe. because he said he was going to do some kind of universe. So like, there's just different stories that are kind of happening, and they're all kind of come together in some kind of like unexplained way. But
So
what are your
he was
thoughts?
actually he was actually. It's funny that you brought up Twilight because he was actually supposed to be the host for the Twilight remake. Because I think they were trying to bring the series back, but I'm not sure if he dropped out or if they decided to can the show altogether. But maybe I think you might have something. There might be something to your theory in the sense of like maybe because of the Twilight thing didn't work out, he's trying to just kind of build his own Twilight type of universe. Because I don't remember. I didn't watch Twilight in its entirety, so I don't remember a lot of it. But I do know
Yeah.
that some of the stories within Twilight. It was Twilight. The series was an umbrella, and all the episodes were somehow interconnected to one another, right? So there was some of them had like a lot of crossovers, and you've seen that also in I don't know how far you've gotten in Black Mirror, but Black Mirror is kind of similar to Twilight, and it's done in the same kind of format where some of their episodes kind of crossover like in some capacity, so like they'll either be like little easter eggs or references here and there from previous episodes and stuff like that, even though like the show isn't a chronological thing, so like everything is every episode is its own self-contained thing, much like Twilight. So maybe he's trying to build a universe like that where he makes you believe or think that each movie is its own contained thing, and then later on he'll reveal that they're all somewhat connected. And then whether Daniel Kaluuya is playing the same character or not, I think because of the the concept of us and the whole there's you and then you have your tether. Who's to say that this guy couldn't just be a tether, and then at one point they'll end up
Oof.
meeting up together in some kind of weird scenario or something like that.
You know, something that I just love about what he does, and it's because it's so true to what I'm leading to it slowly, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's so true to the core of the feeling of what he's talking about, which is the concept of racism.
Mm-hmm.
But he's doing it in a way that's like one makes a lot of other concepts, like there's a lot of stuff he's taken from other, horror films and whatnot, very clearly. But then when you layer it with this like layer of racism and these acts from racism, it just makes it so much more unnerving, and at the same time is also a sneaky and intelligent way to show people who like, Get Out is like wake up and take a look at the
Mm-hmm.
situation. And
Mm-hmm.
us, I'm trying to pinpoint like the analogy for it, but it just, even though that one feels a little bit more removed, it still has this whole thing of like it, all these layers of like experimentation on like
Mm-hmm.
the Tuskegee trials and stuff like that, like the
Mm-hmm.
experimentation on large groups of Black people that's gone unnoticed by society as it's literally underground,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's all these like layers of like truth that are like
Mm-hmm.
makes it way more creepy,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's things that people like, you watch Get Out and people were like, oh yeah, but like that those questions are crazy. And then I'd be like, every one of those questions I've been asked, right? At the
Mm-hmm.
auction, every
Mm-hmm.
question I've literally been asked before. And people are like, who would ask you those? I'm like, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, not like one person, like a lot of different
Yeah.
people have asked me those questions. So it's like, this is real. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
scares people the more. But then it's layered inside of a horror film. So there's a level of fantasticalness that makes it accessible and not
Mm-hmm.
like preachy,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it sink deeper because you watch the film, you come out, oh, whew, you get in the car and you're like, but that movie really messed with me in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, and then you gotta have a conversation with people because the movie sinks in and comes back like that one shot that hits you like a few minutes later and knocks you out. So
Yeah, yeah. And what's crazy is when I first saw the trailer for Get Out, for example, I legit thought that it was a comedy. Like when I saw the preview, I was like, "Oh, interesting." Yeah, because like the way it was portrayed, like if you go back and you watch the original trailer, it comes off like a parody. Like he's trying to do like like a scary movie type trope, like like with the Wayans brothers, how they were parodying all
Yeah.
the famous horror movies or whatever. So I
Scary
thought that,
movie.
yeah, like so I thought Jordan Peele was trying to do something similar to that, because like a lot of the shots they had used in the trailer were so outlandish in terms of, like, for example, like the questions like that you're referring to, right? Like we've both been asked those kinds of questions, right? And when it comes off, like you hear everyone and like when I was watching it in the theater, it was like I was watching a different movie, and then the Get Out trailer came on, and everyone was laughing, and I was like, oh, I guess this is a comedy. Then I watched it, and I was like, oh, okay, no, this is a very deep layered film, and it demands like a second viewing, so you kind of really take in the message, because at first you go in not knowing what to expect, other than, oh, I'm probably gonna get a lot of laughs out of this, and then you're like, well, yeah, it was funny, but not for the reason that I thought it was going to be, and then it makes you think at the same time, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, this is deep.
You know, Us also has like one of the best reuses of a musical score. Like they took that song, I forget the name of it right now, but that rap song, and then they retook all of the instruments, like, and replayed some of them, and just did it in such a way that like my partner cannot stand that
It's
song.
so
It
eerie, man. Like
it
what they did with it.
Oh, it's so good. And as someone who like makes music and mixes music, it's so well done. It's so like it still resonates with me, that
Yeah,
song now. And the sound of it and everything that it means. And obviously, I forget her name right now, Lupita Luongo.
yeah,
I got that one quick. I usually don't get that fast.
yeah,
Um, but her performances, because she
yeah,
didn't give one performance. She gave
yeah,
two different performances that were
yeah.
fantastic. And just like, oh, that movie sinks deep. And like, yes, it wasn't as um surprising as the first film, I want to say, but they're both masterful films, right? It's like, oh, the first one's a 9, the second one's like an 8.5, like
Yeah,
they're just I'm totally in for whatever this man wants to drop next. That's all I got to say
yeah.
about that.
Like I'm definitely keeping an open mind for sure. Like, because I know he's a different kind of creative genius. Like the way this man's mind works is unreal. Like how he can go from comedy and then just give us horror, but in a very unique way, where it doesn't have to be over the top or filled with monsters or something, but it makes like I remember, because I watched Us with you, and I remember that walk and that drive home. Like I was freaked, bro, because I was like, shit. Like this movie, like it's not your typical horror movie, but it spooked me in a lot of different ways, man. So yeah, I'm definitely open to whatever this guy puts out at this point.
Yeah, his movies are, like you said, there's not a lot of like there's no monsters and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and it's because it's so based in something that's real with a layer of something that's unrealistic, but almost still feels possible, because it's even the thing that's
and that's what makes it
unrealistic.
scary.
Yeah, the thing that's unrealistic is based on something that's probably already happened, right? Like experimenting on people's brains. Yeah, people have done that. A lot of
Oh
that.
yeah,
Experimenting on
yeah,
black people's brains, people have done that, right? Trying to create clones, people have been trying to do that. Like the whole tether concept, that's where you start pushing a little bit fantastical, or like actually manipulating people's brains and being able to transplant a white person's brain to a black person's body. Yeah, that's where it stretches, but you feel like people are trying that stuff, and people
yeah.
are like trying to get that close, and he could get there. Probably won't work, but
And,
regardless, it's too close. It's too close to home.
yeah, and even though that stuff is a little bit out there, it's not so far fetched within the world that he's building. So it stays very much grounded, even though it kind of takes it to an almost fantastical point of view. Unlike, like the Fast and the Furious franchise where they just like, and I don't mean to keep shitting on that like I love the franchise minus F9, like where they just like it's like they set up a world in the previous films, and then in Fast Nine, they're just like, okay, yeah, we've traveled to a different dimension where anything goes, and now you're like, you've got to suspend your disbelief times infinity. Like it's unreal. Like I don't believe in the world at all that they're building. Whereas with like his movies, yeah, a lot of the stuff is out there, but still very much grounded where it's like I find myself questioning shit, man. Like can a person actually kidnap me and like steal my brain and turn black and shit? Like can I actually go into the sunken place? Like what the fuck? So yeah.
But yeah, and then there's a layer of like who people who want to be black as the analogy that it is setting up, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's so much to it. There's so much to it. Like at every point of something that's fantastical, you can trace it back to a realistic, simple thing that people do, even if it's just acting in emulation of other people,
one
right? Like
hundred
that's
percent.
just yeah. Oh, so good. By the way, I'm going to be watching F9 tonight, so I will finally be able to take a dump on it next week. In the because I like based on everything you said, it makes me think like yeah, these rumors of it crossing over with just not Justice World, Jurassic
Yeah.
World is like a possibility. And I'm
One
like,
hundred percent, bro.
and the thing
One
is
hundred.
like you set up a universe. You got like I get that you have to keep raising the stakes, but I thought the raising the stakes would have been around like, different actors you brought in and still in some level of realism with what you do with cars, right? So like I know it's hard to like keep upping the stakes, but honestly, you should have just been hiring better stunt people and stunt coordinators to come up with like make stunt coordinators and people and pyrotechnics like audition who has the craziest idea and then choose that craziest idea and that's what goes in the film instead of what this sounds like they're doing. So
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you don't need to go so outrageous and over the top with a lot of these stunts, and like it just becomes a joke in and of itself, right? Because it's like I was watching a video on YouTube where they were comparing the franchise to not Top Gun, Mission Impossible. How like those movies, I think we're at like seven right now, Mission Impossible 6 or 7, and they just keep progressively getting better, and they're including bigger stunts, but it's still grounded in that reality, in that world. It's not so over the top, and on top of that, there are stakes. Like when Ethan gets hit or like run over by a car, he's not standing in a fucking superhero stance and brushing himself off. Like he's limping away from that, like because he's still human at the end of the day. Whereas Dominic Toretto, he's doing some crazy shit, like where he should have been dead from like Fast Four, and still just able to walk away, no bruises, no blood, no nothing. And I'm just like, okay, now you're pushing the envelope here a little bit too much.
like honestly for me the limit of how far they can push stuff was when he caught his partner in the air flying between two highways
Yeah,
and landed in the
yeah,
car, and that was like yeah you should have been dead. I'll accept this but just don't push it past here. And then just
I
feel like
agree, one
oh
hundred percent.
if I can get away with this what
Yeah,
can I get away with? And you're like oh man give him an
yeah,
inch take a quarter mile.
yeah. Yeah, they. I feel like as much as I enjoy the franchise, I feel like they should have ended on 7 because it was a perfect send off for Paul Walker, and I feel like there was no more story to tell. They got away, they became rich, their records were clear, and like what else is left? But I feel like they're just milking this franchise, and now it's getting kind of disrespectful.
Yeah,
But I'm
facts.
still gonna see
Fact.
Fast 10 and 11. Who am I kidding?
Speaking of disrespect, I gotta jump into this Chronicle 2 announcement, okay?
Cool,
I
cool,
I got
cool.
I'm so y we shared the link recently amongst ourselves, and here's the thing: the movie, uh, you tell me, do you want a Chronicles 2? Yes, I want a Chronicles 2, but I want it to come based off the same storyline. From what I've read so far, and I'm not hating on this as a concept, but it's changing the focus to 10 years later and focusing on this female character. And the stuff that I'm reading about it, to me, sounds more like they're banking on what's culturally popular than telling the story. Like, one of the things that I caught a bit out what they wrote in this article, but like one of the things that they're saying is like the way they talk about the film is like, oh, there's literally no better investment that could ever be made in this film. We're gonna make a bunch of money. It's like that's the first thing, and I'm like, okay, that's not already, we're on the wrong path. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what is it? So we're going to tell it from a female point of view. It will be 10 years since the event has happened in Seattle, and a lot is going on to deal with fake news and real news and cover-ups. More interestingly, it's the next generation getting those powers that are corruptive. These are young these are young women just finishing college. They're empowered, and this is their journey. I mean, what new and interesting story can you tell here? Now, don't get me wrong. I want to see movies of young, empowered women with superpowers. But this just sounds like it's like, can we find a checkbox full of list of things to try to bring women to the theaters? Like, it doesn't sound like I don't know. Like, I get that there's like this universe, but then I feel like we're gonna get like immediately like, and let's just tell you really quickly at the very beginning of this film the things that have happened over the last 10 years, so we can set this up and immediately get into these characters and totally ignore everything that happened in the first film. What made the first film so interesting was the character who started betraying all of his buddies with the power and how it was corrupting him, and the dichotomy of how he was like turning into a psychopath, right? That was what was like really like interesting about that film. And I feel like they're gonna miss all of that, or they're just gonna repeat and recycle with women, and it's like, okay, it's the same story. You just put women on it. It's gonna like stink like the Ghostbusters one where they just like threw a bunch of women in
Oh
and tried to do the
yeah.
same thing, and like I didn't watch it, but I asked like my partner, and she was like, yeah, it was garbage, or she didn't want to see it because it looked stupid, and I'm like, it's like even with all like the women in there, it's like, yeah, it looks stupid. I'm like, I thought I did too. I just want to make sure you thought it looked stupid because it looked like they were like, here's black people, you will want to buy this. Like that's what it looked like to me. Like except for just women. So, what are your thoughts on this movie?
I have a lot of thoughts. So initially when I read it, I found that like the whole female perspective thing to be intriguing. Like it would be nice to see how women cope with these powers in comparison to how the boys did it. But I do agree with you. You're right in the sense that it has the potential of being complete shit in like just like the female Ghostbusters was. So that's kind of concerning for me in that regard. Also, I really wanted to see a continuation of where they left off from the first Chronicle, because where we left off, Andrew gets killed, and then I forget the other Matt. He goes off to Tibet and still has his powers, but now he's traveling the world trying to figure out what happened to him, where this that orb or whatever it was that gave them their powers came from. And I thought when we were gonna, if we were ever to get a Chronicles 2, that we would go into the lore of that and explore that a little bit more. And I feel like if they stray away from that, it leaves a potentially good story on the table. So if, like you were saying, if this is just a rehash of the first movie but only with females now, I'm not all that interested. I would love to see a woman's perspective on the movie, but just give me something different. Maybe tie in Matt into this as well, and do something where both of those are enthralled somehow, right? So that's part of my thought on it. And you're right. With the fact that they're referencing the money, it sounds more like a cash grab. But it's like I don't know how well Chronicle did domestically and internationally to warrant like where they even assume that this is going to be a big cash grab. Like, are they just capitalizing on the fact that like like you were saying, like women empowerment. If that's their angle, then I don't know how well that's going to really do, right? Because who are you specifically catering to outside of just women in general, right? Like what's the overall angle, right? And are you gonna push that trope or that push that foundation so much that you deviate from the true essence of the Chronicles storyline? Because if that's the case, then again, I'm not interested. Yeah, go
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. The thing about the cash grab concept here is it's not that the movie had to make a lot of money in terms of gross. What I mean by that is, like, for those who don't understand the concept, gross is how much money you make at the top, right? So, Avengers comes out, Endgame, and it's like a $2 billion film, right? That's the top line money. But then there's all the money you have to pay to make that movie, to market that movie, and you have to do that, you have to ask investors to give you big wads of cash, and you have to pay them back with interest, right? So if the first film, I'm not looking at the numbers anymore, but like I think it was like 150 million it made. I think it was a number said, and I think it took them like $12 million to make it. So you go out and you ask some people, and they give you a bunch of money, and they say, okay, you owe me 12. Like, let's just say one person, you owe me $12 million, and I'm gonna expect 20% back on my money. If you pay me back in a year, and if you pay me back longer, I'm gonna ask for more and more interest, like a bank, right? And so, but if by the time between getting the money, making the film, getting it out, you make $150 million in like 2.5 years time frame, and your cost to making that movie, like, you make back the money, all the investors get exactly what they want, and the studio walks away with like, $100,000 left or $100 million left over. It's bank, right? It doesn't mean to make $800 million. It just has to make way more than you put into it, right? If it makes three times what you put into it, then you're walking away with at least 2/3 of that money, and that's good business, right? But I feel like they're going to kill the art in achieving those goals, because if they just rehash it from a female perspective, okay, so it runs the risk of either being super stereotypical from a male perspective, or maybe you find something interesting from the female perspective in terms of how they deal with these problems. But I honestly think it's just going to come out and be like, oh, women are catty, or women all come together, or something like that with these powers. And it's like, okay, cool. Maybe there's something cool in this universe of them learning how to use these powers for good. But then does it become a boring film that doesn't feel like it's at all related to the first film, because it's not about the power corrupts you and what you do with it, kind of situation? I don't know. I feel like it's got less chance to be good than it's going to be crap.
Yeah, and I feel like they waited too long to capitalize on this because I think if they had struck while the iron was still hot, this idea might have done a little bit better, or like they would have had a little bit more success with it. I mean, obviously it's not out yet, so it's to be determined. But I don't know. I feel like it's a couple years too late now.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely can't pull the original cast. I mean,
No.
just like the age growth. I mean, you could, but then you have a lot of time to make up, and
Yeah. Well,
they
two of
would
them are
have to.
dead, so
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, you pull the main character who's still alive, and it's like there's so much time has passed. His story is fundamentally different at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
either he's like a super villain or he's a superhero. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not in the dichotomy of anything anymore. He has to have
Yeah.
grown over 10 years to become something. Right? Otherwise, it's like, why are you just sitting there for 10 years? What are you, like, Hitchcock? Like, why are you so boring?
Yeah. Yeah. True. Very. Very
Yeah,
true. All
absolutely.
right. Well, we have one more topic to get to, so let's switch gears here, and we're going to now bring up DC's Injustice: Gods Among Us movie, which is coming out soon. Is that the title? Is that the Is it just Injustice, or is it? I'm a little confused on that one.
I'm not certain on the title either, but the movie was, or the game was Injustice Gods Among Us, but
Gods Among Us, yeah,
I think it's going to be called just DC Injustice so that they can separate it and enhance the story.
yeah. So
Hopefully
like you
enhance.
said, so like you mentioned, it's based on the video game. Injustice Gods Among Us, where Superman is tricked by Joker into killing Lois Lane, who is pregnant with Superman's son or baby. I don't know if it was a son or a daughter. And as a result, Superman goes off the rails and ends up killing the Joker. Spoiler alert. And as a result, the Justice League become divided because now Superman has a new ideology in a sense of how he wants to now operate as a superhero or anti-hero, if you will. And so it's kind of like DC's version of Civil War, which I found to be really interesting. I never actually played. Actually, I did play the game, but not in its full entirety. I basically went on YouTube, found like a full length version of like all the cinematic cutscenes and just watched that as a movie just to kind of get the gist of the storyline, and it was fascinating. I love like you could watch it like a legit movie, which I ended up doing, and I was very very entertained by it, and I would love to see this in like an animated movie format. And the fact that it's going to be rated R has me excited because my hope is that it ends up being on the same level of what's that one that I really like, Flashpoint.
Mm.
How gritty and edgy that movie was. That's one of my favorite DC animated films of all time. So if it's on that level and they don't hold back, then I think that we're gonna have a really solid film because the storyline, the source material is there. They just need to follow it and kind of, you know, yeah, just knock it out of the park. What do you think?
Yeah, I saw the behind the scenes stuff. It looks like it has the potential to be at that level. I like what they were saying about trying to introduce heart and the conflicts of ideology. I feel like they can do more because the overall story in the video game version is fantastic. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember watching it. But I feel like there's obviously moments within the video game version of the story that like you almost kind of have to put extra stuff in just
Mm-hmm.
to keep the video game going so you can have as many battles with as many characters because at the end of the day it's just a fighting game, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
so like they have a fighting game mechanic they have to push forward, and then the story is trying to make it more interesting. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's some extra filler that you can cut out and replace with really thinking about what you want to do with these characters because you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about actually making a video game while at the same
Yeah,
time.
totally.
So I think there's a lot of interesting dialogue and conflict that they can create with people, one, choosing sides, but I think it would also be really awesome if you see characters change sides based on ideology and with posed hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to like put Harley Quinn on the good side, and all of that they're doing. Overall, like I think that this looks like it's going to be a good film. I love the fact that it's rated R. I don't think that this animated stuff, like it doesn't need all of them need to be rated R, but you do not need to appeal because the people watching this are not kids. To be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Yeah.
that the animated for DC world is actually the money is coming from kids. I think it's all coming from adults, and therefore make the content for the adults. Because unless you're releasing this to like, Nickelodeon, like YTV, well, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's around, but unless you're releasing this on a Saturday afternoon for kids, like how are they gonna get this stuff anyways?
Yeah.
Without you buying it for them at this point. So, yeah, I just think that make it rated R. I think it's multiple films, right? Because they're only talking about the first film that they've done, and there's multiple films in the series.
It's because there's so much in there in terms of the game, like the content that they have to make it multiple films. I would imagine
They
that it's going to be.
they never do well when they just have one film, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fine if you have multiple, even if you have a series. Like the Batman movies have been the best when they're in a series.
Mm-hmm.
Though I have to rewatch the most recent Halloween one because I did find it a bit slow. But the like I feel it's either better when you do like part one, part two, whatever, or you do multiple separate films but they're all interconnected to tell the story. So it starts and has a proper end, but there's a new story that continues off the last one. But yeah, I think that the radar is super important to this. I think if it's not, then what are you gonna do? Have them like, shooting lasers and people fall off screen as a silhouette?
Yeah,
Like, this has got to be like, you got to show the grit of this.
yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm excited. I want to see this do well. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like this is where Zack Snyder potentially wanted to go with his franchise based off of like what we saw from the extended version of like his the Snyder cut of the Justice League. Because I feel like they were kind of alluding to a lot of that in terms of like what happens to Lois and like how she's the key and whatnot. So unfortunately, we're probably not going to get a continuation of that storyline. But I would have loved to see an Injustice type of film in live action. And I
yeah,
feel like if DC had just kind of got their shit together, there's a lot of really good source material that they could pull from that could be on the same level, if not bigger, than what Marvel has produced. Because we're talking about the whole, like, not let alone like characters like Green Lantern, the Flat. Like we're like, if you just look at the Holy Trinity, that being Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, those movies alone should have made billions of dollars. Like, because they're more well known properties than Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. No one knew about these guys before, you know, before Iron Man came out, and then they started to introduce them one by one. Nobody knew or cared about them. And then as the success of the movies on the Marvel side started to grow, people started to kind of get wind of it and be like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty intriguing because the storyline was so rich and they took their time building up these franchises. Whereas DC, I feel, was like comparing themselves to Marvel and wanted to play catch up and was like, shit, no, we got to just bust our load immediately. And sorry for that image, but but
WP is the American Pie of comic book movies.
yeah, bro. But that's ultimately what they did, man. And so I feel like if they had just taken their time, we could have been blessed with two great Universal franchises, that of DC and that of Marvel, right?
Agree
So yeah.
100%. DC has DC and WB both at fault here. They have screwed up multiple times over. Like, one, I'm still mad that we didn't get the Batman movie that Ben Affleck was trying to
Yeah.
write. But like, hands down, like, scrap everything that we've seen. Man of Steel, all of it. Just like, fundamentally, if they had stopped and thought, I mean, they could have got it right from Man of Steel level beyond, because at that point there was nothing to truly compare, and they liked the new idea until they saw what was actually happening. But you're right. They have so much material to pull from. You could literally just take Justice League Unlimited, take the best parts of that, and make movies off of that, and go,
Agreed.
okay, this character's kind of stuff in here is cool. Let's make a single film on this character. Regardless of what it is, they have so much good material. A single Batman film could trump any Marvel any Marvel movie up to probably like Endgame, right? If the Batman turns out amazing and Patty Patterson hasn't actually been acting crazy and all of that's just been rumor mill and it's a lie, then maybe this film has the potential to like come in beyond a bunch of other films. But they just don't know what they want to do. Oh, we want to tell individual movies that are by individual directors because directors are frustrated with how Marvel forces everybody to tell a singular storyline. Oh, now that's working. All right, maybe we want to go back and make our universe. No, the universe doesn't make any, like, they don't know what they want. And what people want from them, simply put, is just build as a universe, start somewhere and tell it well. And do not try to be like Marvel. We don't need two Marvel-like universes. We don't have the interest in that. We want it to be different, and we want it to feel like what DC feels like. Like, but they're not gonna get their act together. Like, hopefully, maybe when Discovery buys out WB, because this is like the third time like they're gonna get bought out recently, maybe things will change. But I don't know. I think they would have to change out the heads of DC at the same time. I think there'd be a whole lot of people will have to go to get DC right. Otherwise, I don't know. DC just going to be like just failure, and like for
Yeah.
the longest time, and we're just going to be like honestly, I'm getting tired of it. Like to the point that like I love Batman, and I don't even care to want to see Batman related content anymore. Like they're ruining the name, from
Yeah.
my
No, I
opinion.
agree. I agree. I don't know if I'm quite there yet to like say no to Batman, but I feel what you're saying.
I'm not saying no, but it's like you gotta really intrigue me before I'm even interested to
Yeah.
look at it.
No, no,
Point,
agreed. Agreed.
right?
Agreed.
Like he's like, yeah, oh, we got Batman and Bruce Lee. I'm like, the fuck, the
And
fuck are you going on about?
those are my two favorite characters or people, right? Like characters and people. And I didn't even watch that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but the thing is that they have gems. They have the Harley Quinn show. It's one of the best shows ever made. Like it's so good. And now, as a transition to it, we have a movie that you and I are going to go see tomorrow, The Suicide Squad, that might be good. So maybe
Well, I'm hearing good things.
let's turn this to a positive conversation about DC, even though I'm pissed with them all the damn time. But what are your expectations going into tomorrow? And I don't mean like go Google and find out like, what people are saying, but like, what are your hopes and expectations based on what you've seen so far?
So I haven't actually looked at any of the reactions or anything like that. I haven't checked out any reviews. I kind of want to just go in cold, go in kind
Same.
of semi-blind, and just enjoy it for myself with no imposing opinions. And so I'm I'm looking for a good time, man. I wanna wash the bad taste out of my mouth from the previous Suicide Squad film. So, and the fact that James Gunn is at the helm of this gives me a vote of confidence because look what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like that, both those movies were highly entertaining. So, I trust James Gunn. He seems enthusiastic about it. I've seen a couple of his appearances on talk shows, and he is super excited. The cast is super excited. They all get along. They all have great chemistry. So that really says a lot about the film. And yeah, I'm excited. I honestly, it's hard to say what I expect because I'm not really familiar with any of the characters. My first actual introduction to Suicide Squad was from the animated Batman movie where it was Batman Assault on Arkham. That was like my first introduction of who the Suicide Squad were. And Amanda Waller I'm familiar with from Justice League, obviously, but there was no mention of the Suicide Squad in that series. So when I went in to the first movie, I was kind of excited because I was like, okay, this is a DC property. I really want DC to come out with a win. Batman's going to be in this, so it's got to be good to some degree. And then they ended up shitting the bed. It was trash, like utter trash.
They shat the bed, then brought the Kraken in to shit on the bed,
Yeah.
and then rolled around that thing, kerosened it, lit on fire, and hosted a house party. Like
100%, bro.
they made like the worst film ever made. Like they took a film that maybe would have been a 7, maybe would have been a 10. We don't know. I don't think it would have been a fail. I don't think David Ayer's cut would have been a fail. I think maybe it might have been too moody for people. Cool. I think it would have been a solid film that might not have been for everybody, right? And then they go, hey, the guys that made the trailer, can you recut this movie into a different film?
Yeah.
Stupidest idea ever. It's like letting people plagiarize your work and handing it in. Like I made something good. Can you plagiarize it and then hand that in for me instead? Like
Yeah.
and try to change it so it doesn't look like it's the same work.
Yeah.
So I've mostly stayed away from stuff. I did watch John Campia's like review. It was like a spoiler free review, and it's just and Umar sent us some stuff. The things that I'm hearing are all the things that I want. The three things that I've really wanted. Number one, you can't know, you can't trust that anyone's going to stay alive, right? Like the general consensus I got was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh my God, they can't believe that. All these crazy things that they do. And all like before they even get to like the big bad villain that we've seen in the trailer, the Starro character, like so many things have happened, wacky things before we even get to that point. So that sounds exciting to me, right? Just so like it's going to be a bunch of wackiness constantly,
Yeah.
because that was something that was really awesome in the animated movie that we got. The wackiness, the constant shenanigans happening mixed with the dope action. Then other thing that I've heard is that yeah, it has that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, but it also has the craziness of like a Deadpool kind of vibe. And so all of these things are the things that I want to hear. Like I was mad in the first one that like the first guy to die was the most obvious guy to die, and like
Yeah.
nobody else really died, and it was like okay, but like you're trying to keep them around for what? Like the whole point of Suicide Squad is like a few people won't die, but then there are people who do die that you don't think will die,
Yeah.
and you have to lose like half of the people. You have to lose half of your cast for this to
Yeah.
make sense, right? And the fact that there's so many people in this, I'm like, yeah, he brought a lot of people. You could take out
Yeah.
any time.
Yeah.
Like it's like how many cast members is this? Like 15 people?
I think so. There's quite a fair
Yeah.
bit. And okay, so who do you think is going to die? Like off the top of your
Uh,
head, you probably don't remember all the characters, but
all
let me
right.
actually let me
Well,
see if
see if we
I
can get
can
it.
pull
Okay.
up yeah, like of the full cast.
While you're putting that up, do you think Idris Elba will die?
No, I feel like he's too much big of a household name to be killed off.
But that
I
also means
think
that if they kill him, it'll be even crazier.
agreed. But I do feel that him and John Cena are going to stick around.
I think that John Cena's gonna die. I think his character is too crazy to keep in, but I think he's gonna be like, I know, like a sacrifice play.
You think
Um,
so?
yeah, I think he's gonna be a sacrifice play. I think Idris Elba will stick around because he's the heart of the film. Harley Quinn, obviously not. Harley Quinn makes it through everything. That's Harley Quinn's shtick. Is that she makes it out when there's no reason for her to make it out, right?
Right.
You know, she'll just be like cartwheel, and you'd be like acceptable.
Yeah, no,
um,
she's definitely sticking around. Okay, so
yeah,
this
and
photo
obviously,
might.
and Amanda Waller, like Amanda Waller's gonna make it
Yeah.
through. Right, like Amanda Waller is only gonna die if Batman lets it happen.
Yeah. So this photo might be a little telling based on like how all the characters are placed, but I think this dude's gonna die. The Weasel.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I was like, can we mark on the screen?
yeah,
Polka dot dude. Yeah, he's gonna die. The
I,
guy who takes off his arms on the right, he's gonna die.
yeah,
The one
yeah, definitely.
the one the far back, I don't know who you know that is. They're dead. Everybody in the back is dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, do you think Shark is gonna die?
You know what? I think it's safe to say that Shark, Idris Elba, Harley Quinn, and John Cena are gonna survive. Just the way that they're positioned, they're front and center, and then you have
Think
what's
Rick
the
Flagg's
guy's
gonna
name?
make it?
Um, yeah, I think he will. I think he might get
I
fucked
I
up a little bit, but
I think John Cena's got to go. I think you have to have like a big person who's got to go. I think Rick Flag, like you can kill him, but then it's got to be like it's him or John Cena in my mind because they're both the same kind of character, and so which one makes a sacrifice play? And what I understand about John Cena's character, I could see him either dying of one of two reasons. One, this big heroic event that he does, right? And it may even be like he does a heroic thing, and it's kind of like nobody gives a shit, but he does anyways.
Hmm.
Or he just does something really stupid, trying to be super macho and gets himself killed for it, right? But I feel like one of those two characters, because you don't want both of them sustaining into the next one, and I feel like Rick Flag is supposed to be a character that ties the multiple movies together.
Hmm.
But you could kill him, and that would be a big epic moment. I think Shark also has a potential for dying too, because I just think you can do really a lot of craziness with that. Um,
See,
I just feel like you need to take one of the big ones and you gotta
no,
kill them and you gotta
I,
surprise people.
I totally agree, but like with Shark, I feel like they'd want to keep him around because of good marketing. In turn, like, and I mean, this is a far stretch considering that this is a rated R film and they're not catering to kids. But I view it kind of like Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian. Marketable how marketable that was. It's like there's no way they're gonna kill off the Baby Yoda because even at the end of the second season, when like Luke takes Baby Yoda, everyone was like, that was like the question on everyone's mind. Like, what happens to Baby Yoda? Is he gonna come back in the third season? Like, so I feel like with the shark, based off what I've seen from King Shark and like his humor and everything, I feel like they might want to keep him around for future new movies.
You know what? I love that comparison. I don't think that the shark is gonna have the level of
No,
fandom that
100% not.
like,
No, no way.
I feel I'm waiting for for the first moment he bites somebody in half, and then I look over at you and I'm like, "Baby Yoda."
Yeah,
You'd be
that
like,
shit'll
"Nah."
sell, bro.
Yeah. No, the thing is, the one thing the reason why, like, I'm anticipating this does well, right? Josh Gunn
Hmm.
continues to get more of these films and continues to have more fun. I think that the shark's gotta die so he can bring another CG character, just for the fun of bringing in a different character with a different dynamic and one that maybe has more lines than this one. So I think he's gonna die. I think that the weasel has a chance of living. I think the weasel, because it's a weasel. Weasels weasel their way through everything. So I think that the weasel will live, and it's the creepiest character of all of them. And when it lives, it'll be like you think it's dead, or like like maybe like its arm gets chopped off or something, or like a
Hmm.
tail gets chopped off, and you're like, oh, it died. And then later on, you just see it like scurrying along somewhere and
Yeah.
escaping, and everybody else goes back to prison, and the weasel lives and escapes. I'm gonna put my money that the weasel lives and escapes because it's a freaking weasel, and it'd just be hilarious, right? That it survives because somebody always escapes. It's either Harley or the weasel in my mind. So
I feel like the weasel will escape and then get blown up by Amanda Waller.
oh, that'd also be good too. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like, or like it's almost all the way, because I hear there's two post-credit scenes. Like it escapes, and then the first post-credit scene is like the weasel doing something completely disgusting, because it's like
Yeah.
it went to jail for eating like babies. Like that's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was in the
Yeah.
trailer. So it's like, and then it's about to like capture somebody, and then you just see like Amanda Waller show up, and it sees Amanda Waller, and it's like, uh-oh. Right? It's just like
Yeah.
it's over, right? Like it's like no, 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 no. But
Yeah.
yeah. So what is your expected rating for this film? And I'm gonna put mine down, and then we'll see how it comes out at the end.
I'm gonna say a low 8.
A low 8. Okay, so 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm kind of with you. I feel like it's like an 8.5 or a 9. So I'm gonna go 8.5 out of safety. That's a safety play right there.
8.5. Yeah,
Uh,
that's pretty safe.
I
Okay.
feel like I'm hoping it's a little bit better. There's something in the cinematography that makes me feel like it might be lacking a little bit something, but I think the movie might be so good that any of the like visual gripes I have will like be like, forget that shit. It's just too good.
Yeah.
So
And I like Umar's comparison about Deadpool mixed with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I love both those films. So yeah, 8 is like my safe answer, but I'm hoping that it goes well beyond that too.
yeah, yeah. I also hope there's a couple other like surprise characters that also show up in this film, like just like other ones they just throw in, they don't have in any of the pictures, and they just like show up to
Yeah.
die. Like
Yeah.
just show
Yeah.
up to die, like other people. But and
Yeah.
a totally random like last note, but like Nathan Fillion is in this movie, and there's like a whole petition because in Edmonton where he's from, he's Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make in his honor a thing they have called the Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion. So it's like a pavilion which is like, I don't know, like a thing that you go stand on or something in a park.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, like it was like 2-3 years ago, and like the woman got like 10,000 or 18,000 signatures or something like that, but it never went
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. And then
Mm-hmm.
the marketing team from WB for this film found it, thought it was hilarious, and now it's actually going to happen. Like the Nathan Fillion
Oh shit.
Civilian Pavilion is actually happening out in Edmonton, and even Nathan Fillion has seen it. Like the whole cast has seen it, and they're all like, "Oh, this petition? Yeah, sign the petition." And
That's amazing.
they use it in like their marketing. So like there's literally just like social media videos of them like looking at the Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion
That's
petition, and I'm like,
amazing.
yeah. So like there's even a Deadpool meta level kind of happening with this thing, where it's
Yeah.
like what they're doing with the cast and the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just hope this movie is a smash and it's fun, and then it just
Mm-hmm.
steamrolls into this like, oh, who's gonna become the next film, who's gonna die, who's gonna make it. And like I hope that we get to the point that like DC fans are making bets on like what characters are gonna make it every film
Yeah.
until
Oh,
until
100%. Yeah.
right, like it's like, okay, I got a fiver. I got a fiver on Deadshot. I got 3-1 on the calendar, man.
Oh,
like,
man.
so something
It,
like that.
Yeah, it seems like the latter half of the year we're gonna be getting a lot of good solid films. Like I heard this film is really good. That new movie with Ryan Reynolds, Free Guy, I heard is really good.
Yeah, I'm like not even interested to see it, and I'm like, okay,
Me neither, but it's like, yeah,
because that whole genre is tired. But I'm like,
yeah,
and then Taika Waititi's in it, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, I really hope Taika Waititi takes over Deadpool, because the two people I would love to see direct it is Taika Waititi and then James Gunn. But I want Taika Waititi
yeah,
because I want to see him take over Deadpool.
you never know, it might happen, man. So we'll see.
I feel like the fact that they're like we've seen him together in a few things, and he's in the Marvel world. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
Taika Waititi might take that, and
Yeah.
I feel like Taika Waititi and Deadpool, and just having Deadpool and Korg in the same room.
Yeah.
Oh man, so
man.
good. All right.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Man, I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. I just want to see the Suicide Squad, so that's it. I'm just excited.
Yeah, 100%, man. Looking forward to it. We will give you our review probably next week. We'll, of course, have Umar joining us, hopefully. He's got some birthday celebrations, and it's also his birthday tomorrow officially, so happy birthday, Umar. And we
Yep.
miss you, and we'll see you next week.
All right, peace, y'all.
All right, I'm your boy Tactix,
Yeah, it's just Darcy.
and we out.
Peace.